All right, let's dive into this week. So hopefully you already did the work where you looked at Glennon Doyle's prologue to her memoir Untamed and looked at this idea of being tamed and wild and what that means in her story Cheetah. The reason I wanted you to read that before we did this work with our core values is that's really setting us up for this idea of your wild, your core self is when you're just being true, right? True to whatever you are. There is no right or wrong way. A wild person isn't somebody who goes out and is exploring some unknown place. That could be if that's who that person is, but it could also be a mom at home with her kids if that's who someone truly is. It can be a person who gets up and runs every morning because that's where they feel wild. So your wild is just who you are deep inside. And that really goes hand in hand with our work that we've been doing on core values. So last week you were supposed to find your 2 core values. Some of you found 1, some of you found 3, but most of you found 2, which is what you were supposed to do. That's okay if you found a little less or a little more. If you haven't done that work yet, please go into Canvas and do that first. Because the work we're going to do right now, you're not going to know how to do it. You won't be able to do it without doing that first. So go into Canvas and open up today's assignment or this week's assignment, which is core value 2. And I'm going to go through the examples with you right now. I'm going to try and talk a little bit fast because this is my 5th time recording this video because it keeps going too long. And I don't have any editing software. So here we go. I'm going to give you the example of my core value of health. Okay, so I have 2, health and truth, but I'm going to use the health one as the example for the actual assignment. You're going to need to go in and do 2. And then if you look at the example that I gave you, both of my examples are actually on there. All right, so the first thing I'm asking you to do is look at what behaviors you are currently doing that actually support your value. So an example for me might be conscious cooking. That means to make good, colorful food. I love to cook. I love to go to the grocery store. I love to go to the farmer's market. I got cilantro sitting right here in front of me. Food, right? But it's got to be good, healthy food because like I discussed with you last week, if I'm not eating healthy, my body feels really gross. I have a very food sensitive body. You can see right now that I have like a reaction happening right here on my hand, and that's actually from food. And so if I'm not eating well, then my body tells me. So cooking and eating colorful, whole foods, allowing myself every once in a while to eat an unhealthy meal without beating myself up for it, even though I know that I might have some kind of reaction from it. And then letting go of things that I have no control over. So the first couple of things that I talked about are really like physical health, although for me, they really affect my mental and emotional health as well. But there are other parts of health. So this idea of letting go of something I have no control over. I like to be in control. A little bit of a control freak, admittedly. But I just like to know all the pieces of what's going on. It helps me feel secure. I don't think this is a bad thing. This is my true self. But in order for me to feel peace in my life, there are times where I have to accept that I cannot have control over everything. What we're going through right now, this pandemic, is a perfect example of something I have no control over. Now, obviously, I don't have any control over a global pandemic. But usually what I do have control over is how things are happening at work, what's happening in my classroom. I don't have control over that right now either. So at school, as long as you're going to class, we're all in the same space. I'm giving you all the same lesson. We're all doing the same work. We all have computers, we all have all the things. So I know what you're getting. Now, we are not in that place anymore. I don't know what it looks like at home for you. I don't know if you have a quiet space to work. I don't know how invested you are in the work. I don't know if you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth clearly. I don't know if you need extra help. I don't know all of these things, especially if you don't tell me. And so a lot is out of my control. What that means is the result of all the work I'm doing isn't necessarily what I would want it to be. So I have to adjust how I'm looking at things. Since I can't control what's happening outside of my own apartment. I have to think about how I perceive the actual process. So I've started to look at this as, what's the word? Professional development. So I'm learning, right? I'm learning how to teach online. I'm learning different technologies. I'm learning how to fix my computer when it breaks. I'm learning how to hopefully make this easier for all of you, which is great. And that's what I'm going to get out of it. And some of you are going to do the work and some of you aren't. And that's just something that's out of my control. And letting go helps me to feel some peace and maintain some mental and emotional health. Something else that helps me maintain my health, taking social breaks. So you guys know I'm an introvert. I've told you before. Over the course of this time, I've seen my mom, my dad, my brother, and my boyfriend, and that's it. And I'm totally fine with that. When we're in school, I see all of your beautiful faces all day long, and we're talking all day long, and I love it. No complaints about that. But at the end of the day, I am tired. If you've ever popped into the classroom at 2:35, you'll see me like super, super wiped out because I am exhausted from being so social all day long. Now, if a coworker says, hey, let's go grab something to eat, I am most likely going to say, no, thanks. It's taken me a long time to be able to say no, thanks. I used to go regardless, right? Because I didn't want to disappoint anyone. The most important person for you not to disappoint is yourself. Keep that in mind. Now I'm a little bit stronger. I know myself better. I'm able to live into my values better. And I'm able to say, thank you, but I can't make it today. And I can't because mentally I can't go. Regular yoga, getting lots of sleep, and trying to maintain a healthy work-life balance. These are not things I'm perfect at, not whatsoever. I often am not living into my values with these, but I'm starting to get a little bit more aware of it so that I can stop and say, hey, it's 7:00 at night on a school day when we're at school. It's time to go home, or like right now, I probably should say, hey, it's 12:07 in the morning. Maybe it's time for bed. And it is going to be time for bed as soon as I'm done with this. All right, so that's one. Those are some ways that I live into my values. Some slippery behaviors when I'm not living into my values. For me, it might be eating an excessive amount of food because I'm really stressed or sad, which for some people is fine. For me, it isn't. For me, it makes my body feel very, very sick. And so I know that that's not a good thing for me to do. Not sleeping, even if I'm super exhausted, if I'm stressed out about things because I'm not living into my values, I'm not sleeping. And that's rough, right? Because then what happens later is I might feel very irritable because I'm very tired, but I still can't sleep. So I know if I'm having a really hard time sleeping, then I need to be paying more attention. Finding excuses to not go to the gym or do yoga. That happens sometimes, just every once in a while. Overscheduling or overcommitting myself to social events or tasks. And even like things like eating what other people want me to eat because they're eating. So, hey, let's have pasta and, lasagna and garlic bread and pizza. Well, that sounds delicious, but I know that I'll regret it later. But again, if I'm in that place of not wanting to disappoint someone, then maybe I'll do it. Now, here's the real question. Is that person really disappointed in me if I don't eat that food? And the answer is probably no, right? And if the answer is yes, then perhaps that's a conversation I need to have with that person and let them know, like, look, I can't do that. It's not living into my health value and it's really not good for me personally. Like, no judgments on you doing that. I just can't. Can we do something else instead? That's called creating a healthy boundary and maintaining positive relationships. An example of when I was fully living into this value. So a time that I was 100% invested in health was when I had to move home in a transition period of time. This was like a few years ago, and I moved home for a brief period of time to my parents' house. And when I was there, I was feeling weird because I hadn't lived at home for a long time and I missed my independence and that sort of thing. And I was feeling like this creative, like, ugh. So I started a blog called Body to Bliss. And it was all about exploring health and wellness and food and yoga and all the things that I find really wonderful in life. And then writing about it. And I learned how to make a website, mental health, right? I was tapping into my creativity, emotional health. I was actually writing about health-related things. It was a really wonderful opportunity for me to tap into my health value. So you're going to do that. Then you're going to do it for your second value. And then you're going to think about who supports you and what your self-support looks like. So for me, many people support me. I'm very lucky to have beautiful people in my life. But one friend who's very supportive of values specifically is my friend Liz. Liz and I met through yoga. And we see each other maybe once a week, maybe twice, depending on what yoga classes we take. And then we are in a book club together and we talk all the time. So we talk all day long or via text. She's super supportive of me as an individual. She is just a wonderful human being, and she's really familiar with a lot of the same things that I'm familiar with. She's an educator too. She has read this book that this value work came out of. She's done her values too. So we're able to actually talk to each other about things and know what the other person's talking about. So for me, she's a great person to be my support. So we do daily check-ins, not like, hey, are you living into your value today? Although that's not a bad thing to do. We do gratitude checks. And then I just know that she'll be honest with me, especially if I ask her to when I'm talking to her about my values, but she'll also show compassion. So let's say I have a really bad day health-wise, then she'll be like, tomorrow's a new day. Don't even worry about it. And that's really valuable to me. A way I show self-compassion is to not beat myself up if I make a mistake. And then also to really ensure that my daily decision-making is centered on my values. This just means I really have to think about it. Something that might be a good idea for you and for me too is to do an art piece or write your values out really big and beautiful somewhere and put it somewhere where you'll actually see it. So then if I'm about to do something, I can say, oh yeah, is that falling into my health value or is that being true to myself? And doing that is actually really helpful. Early warning signs, like I told you before, I have body aches. If I'm feeling anxious, if I'm feeling like I'm out of line with my values, specifically, like I have specific areas on my body that will hurt bad, like my low back. You guys remember when I threw my low back out at the beginning of the year? Twice, actually. And my throat. So in yoga, this part of your body is your throat chakra, and it represents truth. So for me, since that's something that I practice, this area, if it's feeling funky, I think I'm out of line with my truth. By the way, me not being healthy is out of line with my truth too. So the two really do go together. Like I already said, an inability to sleep, and then being like super emotional. I'll cry at anything. You give me like the wrong flavored chicken wing and I'm going to be shredded over it if I'm out of line with my values. And then when I'm living into my values, it feels peaceful. It feels like I can just enjoy life. It feels like I'm being my true self, and it feels like I can handle it even if something happens that I don't want to happen. So even if there's a consequence that I wasn't expecting or that I wasn't looking forward to being truthful or to being healthy, I can handle it if I know that I'm being true to myself. And I am so happy that I just wrapped that up in less than 15 minutes. So that this will actually post on YouTube. This is due on Sunday, May 10th. That is Mother's Day again. So if you don't want to do this on Mother's Day, make sure you get it done before then. And let's see, anything else? I think that's it. All right. So you let me know if you have questions. I hope to see you guys in Zoom next week. Bye.